Hello. So this this video I will show you the results of something I did during the 2023 NFL season, which is to predict every single game of the 2023 NFL season the week before. So each week before the games, I would predict every single game for that week. So at the end of the video, I will show you just the slideshow of every week and every single game in that week. But for this part of the video, I'll just show you the overall results from the whole season. So here's the overall results for the whole regular season. I got 168 games correct and 104 incorrect with a success rate of 0.62. And then if you look at the playoffs, I got 8 games correct and 5 games incorrect. And again, the rate is 0.62. And if you combine the playoffs with the regular season, I got 176 games correct, 109 games incorrect, and a rate of 0.62. And then if you look at every week overall here, this is how many games I would get right in that particular week and how many games I would get incorrect and the rate for that particular week. And my worst week was week 7 with only 4 correct and 9 incorrect, rate of 31%. And my second worst week was week 14, and those were the only 2 weeks where I got under 50%. And my best week was week 17, where I have 13 correct and 3 incorrect. And this is again showing all the results from the playoffs for each week of the playoffs and then the entire postseason. And this is the whole season again. And then finally, I made this thing here. So this is the number of wins each team would have if all of my predictions were correct. So if all my predictions, if you just based their record based on what I predicted them to get, this is what their record would be. It's kind of funny how so like a lot of the bad teams I just predicted them to lose every single week. So like the Panthers and Cardinals, I just always predicted them to lose. And then some of the best teams I predicted them to win the vast majority of the time, giving them very high win totals like the Cowboys with 14. 49ers, I never predicted them to lose a single week of the year. And the Chiefs, I only predicted them to lose one time uh, the whole year. Um, and then if you compare my predicted predicted record based on my individual predictions, compare with their actual record, you get the difference. And none of them were too drastic. The most drastic ones were some of the good teams, like the best teams in the league. I massively over predicted how many wins they would have just because I was predicting them to win so like every single week. Like the Chiefs and the 49ers, I was 5 wins off there. And the team and like the team where I predicted them to where I bet, underestimated their win total the most was the Raiders, where I only predicted them to win 3 times, but they actually won 8 games. And then the final thing I have here is if you add up every single correct and incorrect prediction for each team in the league that I made the entire season, you can see how often I correctly predicted that team's result for that week. And if you add them all up, the team that I predicted correctly most often was the Panthers. And that's understandable considering that I kind of considered them to be one of the worst, if not the worst team in the league for the entire season, and they ended up only winning 2 games. And I predicted them to lose every single game, so that was the easiest one to predict. And weirdly enough, the Chargers was the second easiest one to predict, where I got 14 correct. And and then if you go all the way down to here, there are only 4 teams where I predicted them incorrectly more times than I did correctly, and that's the Texans, Bengals, Packers, and Falcons. And they kind of all each have a little bit of an explanation as to why I wasn't able to predict them very well. So like the Texans, they over the course of the season they actually massively outperformed expectations. they won a lot more games than most people would had expected. Most people had expected that team to be not very good. Um, but also not in addition to that, they lost a few games here and there that were really random and unexpected. Like they lost a game to the Panthers and like they lost a game to the Falcons, and I did not predict either of those correctly. So, and then for the Bengals, it was hard to predict them because Joe Burrow, their quarterback, he had injuries. So the beginning of the season, he was injured, and that affected their games at the beginning of the season. But I did not know that that was going to affect it because he was still playing every game. And then later in the season, Joe Burrow got injured, so you would think that they would start losing a lot more games, but they actually won a few games with their backup quarterback. So that really hurt my predictions for that team. And then the Packers had a really interesting season. So basically, every time I thought they were bad, they were good. And every time I thought they were good, they were bad. So like the beginning of the season, they started off kind of strong. They started 2-1, so I thought they were a good team, so I started picking them to win. But then they lost a ton of games and they fell to like 3-6. And then I started finally picking them to lose. And right when I started picking them to lose, they started winning a ton of games. And they went on this like win streak. And then, like, right after that win streak, finally went back to predicting them to win, and they lost a couple of weird games, like they lost to the Giants. So, like, it was really hard to predict where they were going. Like, they kept changing directions all season long. And then finally, the Falcons are the hardest, at least for me, they were the hardest team to predict of any team. I only correctly predicted a game of the Falcons 5 times out of 17. So, and it's not really, there's not really much of an explanation. It's just that they were kind of like a middle team that they just seem it just didn't seem to be completely random whether or not they would win every single week. Like they would, and it wouldn't really seem to matter what type of team they play. Like they lost to bad teams like the Panthers and the Cardinals, and yet they beat a team like the Texans. So it was just almost impossible to predict whether they would win every week. So, anyways, there you go. That's the overall summary of all the results from my predictions of the 2023 NFL season. And at the end of this, after this, I will just show you a slideshow of every single week, showing all the individual results from each week. So have fun watching that. That was funny.